Bienvenue à la réunion numéro 79 du comité
Welcome to the 79th meeting of the Standing Committee on Official Languages, and according to Section 1083 of the regulation and the motion adopted by the committee on September 20th, we are meeting in order to look into economic development of official language minority communities. Today, we're having a hybrid meeting, and members may participate in person or through Zoom. And to be sure we have a smooth meeting, I would like to ask you to wait to be asked to speak and be sure to turn on your microphone, and please use mute when you're not speaking. Regarding interpretation, for those who are in Zoom, you will see at the bottom of your screen, you can choose between the floor, English or French. For those who are here in the room, you can choose the channel you would like. There is a very good audio system here. However, there can be some feedback, and that could be very harmful for interpreters and cause injury. And often, if there is feedback, it's because of an earpiece that is too close to the mic. So we would like to ask you all to be very careful with your earphones, especially when your mic or your neighbor's mic is on. To be sure there are no incidents, I would like to ask you to be sure to speak into the proper mic and to not handle your earphones and to put them far from the mic when you're not using them. I would like to remind you that all the members and witnesses observations must be made to the chair, and I am chairing today. For members present in the room, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand, and on Zoom, please use the function raise hand, and the clerk and I will try to follow the order. And as usual for connection tests, I would like to tell you that all witnesses have carried out the connection test beforehand. Now, we begin our meeting. I would like to welcome our witnesses from the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, Mr. Stephen Traynor, Vice President, Policy, Planning, Communications, and Management of Northern Projects. Welcome. And from Prairies Economic Development Canada, Anup Kapoor, who is Assistant Deputy Minister, Policy and Strategic Directions. Welcome, Mr. Kapoor. And I would also like to welcome Ms. Ginette Lebel on Zoom, a lead officer for business services, and she is also with Prairies Economic Development Canada. And now for you all, we have 1 hour for this meeting and for questions by our members. And then around 5:30, after 1 hour, we will go on to our second meeting. So I would like to welcome you all. And now, Mr. Traynor, it's up to you to speak. You have 5 to 10 minutes. Mr. Chair, members of the Standing Committee on Official Languages, my name is Stephen Traynor, and I am the Vice President of Policy, Communications, and the Northern Projects Management Office for the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, or CANOR. I'm pleased to join you in person here in Ottawa and respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Thank you for the invitation to appear today to speak about CANOR's support in Canada's 3 territories for the economic development of official language minority communities. CANOR works with Northerners, Indigenous peoples, communities, businesses, organizations, other federal departments, and territorial governments.
It is our
mandate to help build communities so as to foster sustainability and economic prosperity in the long term in Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, and the Yukon. In today's text, CANOR is working closely with Francophone economic development organizations in each territory, namely the Association Franco-Yukonaise, the Conseil de développement économique des territoires du Nord-Ouest, and the Association Francophone du Nunavut. The goal is to encourage and support projects that foster economic diversification, business development, innovation, and partnerships. CanNor is responsible for promoting and financing economic development initiative EDI fund in the territories. As the committee is aware, the EDI was announced by the Government of Canada in 2018 through the Action Plan for Official Languages, investing in our future. CanNor's share of the EDI is relatively small, amounting to just $80,000 a year. As such, we support official language minority communities through our regular funding streams, including our flagship program, Inclusive Diversification and Economic Advancement in the North. And it was recently renewed in the plan of action. I would like to give you a few examples for the committee. The first one is an example of underscoring the importance of partnerships and collaboration. CanNor provided a financing of $240,000 over 3 years to the Association Franco-Yukonaise to work with Carrefour Nunavut and CDETNO to encourage Francophones to move to the territories with the goal of filling job vacancies. In addition, CanNor provided funding of $745,000 over 2 years to the Association Franco-Yukonaise under the Jobs and Growth Fund to promote Yukon as a travel destination for Francophones from Quebec. The project supports Yukon businesses that offer services in French to adapt their product offerings to the French-speaking market. In the Northwest Territory, CanNor provided $285,500 over 3 years to the Conseil de développement économique under the IDEA North funding program. The Conseil developed and delivered tools and training workshops targeted at Francophone entrepreneurs and youth in partnership with stakeholders such as chambers of commerce and school districts. Through participation in targeted promotions and events, the CDETNO also promoted economic opportunities. And in Nunavut, one moment, please. You may continue. And in Nunavut, CanNor provided $350,000 for a 1-year project to the Association des Francophones du Nunavut under the Canada Community Revitalization Fund.
I'd like to conclude by briefly touching on recent engagement activities. CanNor officials participated in interdepartmental working groups and activities related to the implementation of the Official Languages Act. We also provided input on future engagement strategies with the official language
Monsieur
minority
Traynor, si vous voulez
communities.
terminer, s'il vous plaît, vous avez dépassé votre temps. Rapidement, en conclusion.
Okay. Monsieur le Président, membre du comité, je vous remercie de m'avoir donné l'occasion de parler de rôle de CanNor dans le développement de la communauté d'official language. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur Traynor. Nous enchaînons avec soit Monsieur Kapoor.
Thank you, Mr. Traynor. And now we will hear from either Mr. Kapoor or Ms. Labelle. I'm not sure which one of you would like to take the floor on behalf of Economic Development Canada for the Prairies. Okay, you have the floor for 5 minutes. Members of the Standing Committee on Official Languages, my name is Anup Kapoor, and I'm Assistant Deputy Minister for Policy and Strategic Direction at Prairies Can. I'm pleased to join you here, and I have also with me virtually today a colleague, so I would like to talk about our support to minority official language communities. In the Prairie provinces, there are about 112,000 individuals with French as their first official language. In 2021, this was about 1.7% of the overall population on the prairies. There are 72 official language minority communities in the Prairie provinces. Over the past 5 years, PrairiesCan has invested $34.9 million to assist these communities to thrive and prosper economically and culturally. Each year, PrairiesCan provides $2.24 million in funding towards enhancing the vitality of our visual language minority communities. Of this amount, $640,000 come from the National Economic Development Initiative, or EDI. Currently, PrairiesCan provides this dedicated funding to Francophone Economic Development Organizations, or FEDOs, in each of the 3 prairie provinces. The FEDOs are unique not-for-profit organizations in the prairies, providing dedicated support to Francophone organizations and businesses. EDI provide Francophone community organizations with access to funding for their local economic development initiatives. In 2020, a 3-year pilot project was launched to enable the FEDOs to deliver EDI on behalf of PrairiesCan, enabling them to work directly with Francophone communities in identifying and supporting economic development. Over the 3 years, 35 projects were funded in the 3 provinces for a total of $25 million. This funding involved 195 businesses, 49 not-for-profit organizations, and created or maintained 161 jobs. This delivery model addressed regional needs by bringing the funding decision closer to the communities, and as such, the EDI continues to be delivered by the FEDOs for another 3 years.
Additional $23.5 million to 39 projects, including 8 businesses who self-identify as Francophones applying through our programs. This funding supported creation of 200 jobs, served over 400 businesses, provided training to 1,100 people. Les fonctionnaires de PrairiesCan entretiennent des relations durables.
PrairiesCan officers have ongoing relationships with the FEDOs and other Francophone stakeholders, and they meet and they deal with vitality and development of OLMCs through the use of our OL lens. And the OL lens is applied to the evaluation of all departmental funding program applications in order to enhance ways in which a project can benefit Francophone communities. Between 2018 and now, through all our programming, 186 projects amounting to over $115 million were identified through the OL lens as extending its activities to benefit the Francophone community. We also fund Francophone organizations through programming in tourism, which is a business driver for Francophone businesses in the prairies. Chair, committee members, I wish to thank you, and I will be pleased to answer your questions. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. We still have a few seconds left to finish the 5 minutes. Before we go further, in order to go ahead with the order of questionings, the first question period is reserved for 6 minutes for the Conservative Party, the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, and the New Democratic Party. And because I'm the current chair replacing the chair who had to stay home, I wish to acknowledge René Arsenault, my colleague who is here but does not have a vote. Thank you for being here in spite of the situation that you are experiencing. Now, for the benefit of committee members, I'm going to withdraw as chair, and I'm going to sit at my regular MP chair in order to be able to ask you questions, Mr. Trainer. So I would ask the second vice chair to please occupy my chair.
Alors, si vous êtes prête,
So if you're ready for the Conservative Party, Mr. Joël Godin will speak. Thank you, Chair. So my questions will be directed towards, more specifically, towards the Northern Agency. I'm looking for my notes here. So, Mr. Trainer, in your presentation, you gave us a picture of investments, and here we're in the official languages committee. So you understand that my interest is primarily to see what is going on in your area with regard to French, because the most vulnerable language here in Canada is, of course, French as one of the two official languages. So I'd like to hear you, Mr. Trainer. First of all, in your team, how many employees do you have?
In our team overall in Canada, there's just over 100 staff.
Une centaine.
Oui.
OK.
About 100. Yes. In that 100 employees, how many of them speak French?
Je m'excuse, I don't have that
All right.
information with me, but
Or
get that back to you.
Vous savez pas combien de gens, mais
you
est-ce que
don't know how many of the people. Could you give an estimate based on the people that you work alongside day by day? Is it 25%, 50% of the people who speak French or who can speak French or who can speak English? I think it's an important question in a bilingual country.
50%.
50%?
About less than 50%, but I'd have to get back to you on that.
OK. Maintenant, les gens avec qui
Now,
je m'entends,
of the people, I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know what's going on.
En fait, j'aimerais ça, monsieur
Actually, Mr. Trainer, I would like to ask you, with regard to the senior management, how many francophones compared to anglophones, or how many can express themselves in French among the senior management of your agency?
Most executives in the government, including CanNor, need to speak French. And while we're in the north and often with our colleagues, it's more English than French. But when we're here in Ottawa, we certainly participate in meetings and speak both English and French, both languages.
vous savez que la région
You are
du Nord,
aware that the northern region, the Northwest Territories, and the Yukon are two territories that are growing with regard to the French fact in Canada. Are you aware of that? So, are there many people among you, apart from senior management, that are able to express themselves in French? It's a good question.
CanNor offices are designated under the Official Languages Act as providing bilingual services. However, sometimes due to turnover, we may have temporary or isolated problems in a specific office, but we certainly ensure that we can dispatch those services from other offices. But all our offices are designated as providing bilingual services.
j'aimerais savoir,
I would like
est-ce
to know,
vrai d'affirmer
is it right, am I right in saying that organizations that
s'adresse aux 4 agences, là.
make requests, I'm talking about the 4 agencies, but I'm asking you the question, we'll ask the others later.
Est-ce vrai d'affirmer
Is it
que
true
les gens,
that
pour avoir
people,
accès à de la
in order to have access to financial assistance,
mieux compris, mieux entendu,
could be better understood, could receive better treatment
poser nos demandes
in
en anglais?
English? Is an English application better?
We have both official languages on our website, and during our expression of interest process, we accept them both in English and in French. And before that time, we do have staff on the ground that meet with potential applicants, and they are able to speak both English and French, so they receive both languages.
Mais vous pouvez pas me confirmer que
But you can't confirm that it's equal treatment in French and in English when people, for example, only have an application in French. Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left? Mr. Chair, before going any further, if you could interrupt my questioning time, I would like to table a motion or a notice of motion that the committee should look at this motion and make a decision today. That given that the government of Canada hasn't been able to protect manufacturing jobs for Quebecers, and since hundreds of replacement workers will be coming to Quebec to work in the Norfolk factory, and since those jobs should have been for Quebecers, the committee is worried seeing these foreign workers who might not have enough knowledge of French in order to be able to comply with our language laws in Quebec. So we ask the ministers of official language and the Quebec lieutenant to appear to the committee to discuss this issue for 2 hours. I think, Mr. Chair, that it's important to see our committee as being the guardian of official languages. And since we see that French is on the decline in Quebec, we have to put in contracts, or when there are investments, we have to have protective measures in place to ensure that the French language will be complied with and that it will be promoted to all these foreign workers. If the Official Languages Committee cannot do that and cannot become the guardian of official languages in Canada, as I said earlier, we're talking about the most vulnerable language, which is French, because there has been a drop in use, and so we have to put a stop to that drop. We have to improve use, and Mr. Chair, I think that that motion is pertinent right now further to the agreement that the government signed. So I would like to ask the committee to speak on that, and I hope that my colleagues feel the same way I do about official languages and about French in Quebec. And I hope that we will do what needs doing in order to oblige foreign workers, foreign replacement workers, to know more about the French language. And it's a good time to promote Moliere's language. And as we've been asking for several days, we need to see the contract. There may be clauses, but so far, the government has not wanted to make the contract public. Thank you. I would like to tell our guests that sometimes there are motions that are tabled, and we will discuss it and then come back to you, our witnesses. Yes? Mr. Drouin, thank you very much. I would like to welcome this notice of motion. I just have a few issues I would like to raise about Northvolt. I assume that there wasn't discussion with the Quebec government. The Quebec government was in favor of what has happened, this investment, and so it isn't linked at all to the French language. We can see it in other committees, and I know it's not a motion that was his, had to be reworded in order to work here for our committee, because otherwise the chair would have decided that had nothing to do with official languages. I would like to remind you, it's the issue of foreign workers, and you can't blame the foreign workers for not knowing French or for not complying with official languages in Canada. I think that's a bit far-fetched. And I would like to ask, if we want to talk about foreign workers, I would even wonder, were there any discussions with UPA? Because we have workers brought in every year to work on our farms. So do all their foreign workers speak French very well? And I know that the answer is no. They don't speak French very well. They don't speak English very well. Often they speak Spanish. and they work in Quebec, in Ontario, on our farmlands. And if we want to look at this whole issue of foreign workers, I think that they're trying to make pudding with just a drop of sauce. However, I respect my colleague, but I know that the official position has presented this motion at all other committees. It's always the same thing, and they're trying to hijack those committees. And I'll say it again. If we're saying that the Bill 96 to defend the French language, the Quebec government, if the Quebec government had been against investing in Northvolt because there were foreign workers who would be coming because they're transferring knowledge, they'll be here just for a few weeks or maybe a few months. And so there will be this transfer of knowledge to Quebec workers, and then they'll be leaving. And in any investment with Canadian companies, for example, Bombardier, when they build planes elsewhere, they will bring Quebecois workers with them, no matter where the planes have been sold. So there's a transfer of knowledge, and they'll return to Canada. It's quite a normal practice. What I would like to propose, but I won't do it right away, but I think that the person who drafted the motion, Mr. Godin, who proposed the study, we could talk about the worth of the motion, but I think that we have to come back to what is most important, and we have witnesses here for that. I might come back with other comments later on, but I think we're wasting time here. I think that we should perhaps shelve that and come back to our witnesses. Thank you. Mr. Chair, with Francis, I have issues with the motion. We have witnesses here. We only have a two-hour session, and so I think that we should move forward with our witnesses to show them our respect. Of course, we're talking about 3,000 jobs. There's no validity to the motion. These are Canadian jobs. The foreign workers, as Mr. Drouin mentioned, will be going back to their countries. So it's normal when temporary transfers of knowledge are being carried out. So I think that this motion that has been given to all parliamentary committees, I think it shows such a partisan nature. The Quebec government it was in favor of investment and the union, and so this is a political ploy. And Mr. Chair, we are going to see Quebec well placed for the next 20, 30 years. There will be a factory, there will be jobs. So I think that we have witnesses here and we should deal with them. Ms. Ashton? Yes, I think that the motion brings up important issues, but it's not the best time to talk about it. As an MP from the North and the West, I am interested in listening to our witnesses. I'm interested in asking them questions. So I would like to see us postpone this other issue to later. Mr. Dalton? Yes, I just wanted to say that it's a considerable investment of money in Quebec, hundreds of employees, and the French language is very important. So I think that it's an important motion and it is applicable. Thank you. Mr. Drouin? Mr. Chair, I would like to adjourn this debate. for the time being. That's my proposal. Okay. And now we will vote. Mr. Chair, I had raised my hand. Well, no more debate because we're going to be voting. Mr. Drouin had asked to speak just before you. I had you on my list. Okay. Hello. So, Ms. Clerk, our clerk, we are voting on adjourning the debate. Mr. Drouin, Mr. Yakano, Mr. Chen, Mr. Chen, your vote.
Votre vote. Monsieur Chen, can you confirm your vote, please? I haven't seen your hand. Thank you. Monsieur Sanson? Monsieur Serré?
En faveur.
Monsieur Dalton?
Je veux comprendre cette vote. Est-ce que c'est pour ajourner le vote ou
Le
qu'est-ce que c'est?
débat. C'est vous votez pour l'ajournement du débat en cours.
On reporte le débat. C'est ça?
Mais on met fin au débat puis on reprend ce qu'on avait avant, c'est-à-dire l'interrogation des témoins.
Mais on n'exclut pas le débat.
OK. Seulement pour dire que
I would just like to say that we're not excluding having a debate later on. Is that right? So we will continue the discussion. I want to be sure of that. What I'm told is that it has been adjourned for this meeting. At another meeting, we will be able to come back to it. Mr. Généreux.
Monsieur Godin?
Pour.
Madame Goodridge?
Pour.
Madame Ashton?
Pour.
10 pour, 0 contre.
Alors, 10 pour, c'est adopté à l'unanimité.
10 in favor, so it has been adopted unanimously and carried unanimously. Okay.
Alors, Monsieur Godin, il vous reste une minute.
So, Mr. Godin, you have one more minute. Mr. Taylor, I would like to know what are the indicators you use in your organization to see whether your investments have a positive impact on the development of the French language in your region?
Thank you very much. Certainly, we work well with the Yukon Franco-Yukonese, as well as the other two French organizations, one in Nunavut and one in NWT.
Je m'excuse, M. Taylor, je ne veux pas vous interrompre. Je veux
My
pas vous
apologies, I don't want to interrupt you. My question is, what are the indicators that your organization uses to measure the effectiveness of your investments with the Francophone organizations in the territory?
The measures and results we use are with the Yukon Franconaise, who represents all three organizations. They give us information in terms of the number of job fairs they do in Quebec, for example, to encourage workers. They give us the number of conversations and meetings they have with the municipalities in the north, as well as with entrepreneurs. And certainly they also tell us how well they're doing as an organization, how many meetings they have, and those types of information.
Le temps est écoulé. Alors,
The time is used up.
est-ce que vous voulez revenir?
Did you want to come back?
Alors, merci à Monsieur Beaulieu pour
Thank you, Mr. Beaulieu, for that participation. We shall resume. It's the turn of the Liberal Party, and Mr. Sanson will have 6 minutes to ask questions of the two agencies with us for this first hour. Thank you very much, Chair, and the two witnesses today. It's very much appreciated. And I appreciate the fact that you are doing very well in French. So thank you for that continuity, which is very important. Mr. Kapoor, you mentioned in your remarks that there were 39 projects identified as Francophone or coming from a Francophone organization. How do you measure that? Is that part of a form that indicates what language is involved, or how is that determined? We have a form, and the forms are available in English and in French as well. And there is an opportunity for the applicants to inform us whether they belong to the OLMCs or other aspects in order to validate. So it's a determination based on whether they use the French form or do they identify somewhere that they are a Francophone group. In the form, there is an option to identify whether the person belongs to an official language minority community or other aspect. And am I to understand that you have funds dedicated to OLMC communities? Yes, we invest funds that are connected with EDI, which is $30.2 million who have dedicated funds. Mr. Trainer, you talked about several projects in the Francophone communities. The last one that you mentioned was the community center. Could you please explain that investment and what percentage of it came from your agency? Thank you very much for the question.
There was approximately $350,000 for a one-year project that went to the Association of Francophones de Nunavut.
Yeah, I'm only interested in the last one you said, the Centre Communautaire. The last one.
Community Center.
Okay.
That is it came from the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. So it was from our agency in addition to the normal funds we get through the EDI.
Yes, so that was the funds given towards that center.
That's correct.
Okay. My second question was going to focus on sur les régions rurales
On the rural regions compared to the urban regions. But for you, it's pretty well all rural, I imagine. That's not a very good question for you. And in the prairies, is there a distinction between rural and urban? Most of the communities in our region are rural, OLMCs. I'm talking about the funding that you give. What percentage is dedicated to urban as opposed to rural? Is it 50-50, 75? I'm trying to get a picture. Is the funding on economic development being given mainly to rural areas because the agency is rural? So there are funds which we have invested in our region for rural regions. It's overall, I don't have the exact numbers.
Your funding goes, what percentage goes to urban versus rural? Because this is rural economic, and we know that urban receives all kinds of funding through other avenues. So I'd like to know, could you send that to us, please? Très bien. Et ma dernière question.
And my last question will be concerning new companies, new businesses. Are you seeing an increase in new businesses, or are you funding new businesses? Because I'm always concerned that we're funding the same businesses each time because they have successes. But are there new businesses or people who want to start up businesses. What type of work are you doing to perhaps encourage young people? Do you go to schools, high schools, or how do you create that kind of innovation among young people? Perhaps Mr. Turner.
Associations, and they work directly with all entrepreneurs. They provide things like training on how to be an entrepreneur. They assist them with getting their websites and businesses. A good example in Nunavut, they helped a Francophone outfitter be able to meet standards in English and French to be able to encourage international tourists. So
how do you do that? Is it your association that's funding a local organization to do that work?
That is correct. We fund directly to the Francophone associations in each territory. We focus on one in Yukon who represents all three, but we provide additional funding as needed on certain projects to individual ones.
You know, those that you've done the last 2 years in that area.
Certainly, we can send that to you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Merci, monsieur.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sanson, and thank you, Mr. Trainer. We will now have another 6-minute round, and it's over to the representative of the Bloc Québécois, the key pinch hitter, Mr. Beaulieu. Thank you. I have a question for the two of you. Thank you for being here. I would like to know the Canadian Economic Development Agency for the North and Economic Development Canada for the Prairies. Actually, you're not just a service for Francophone communities in your regions. You serve all of them. So what is the percentage roughly of what you provide in terms of subsidy that is devoted to Francophone communities?
Stephen Trainer, for ourselves, we receive under EDI approximately $80,000 per year, and that has amounted to 240 over the last 3 years. Our organization has topped up with other funds about just over $1 million in addition to that for the last 3 years in Canor to Francophone associations and Francophone businesses.
1 million pour
1 million over the past 3 years, 80,000 for Francophone communities. Is that it, if I understood well?
Directly to the Francophone Association to represent all three. We've provided an additional $1 million to Francophone associations to be able to support businesses as well. So ensemble, c'est 1.3
so
million
taken together.
Years directly.
budget global, c'est combien?
The
overall budget is how much?
The overall of my organization, or just for the
Your organization.
Organization is generally about $40 million per year.
OK. 1,300,000. Monsieur.
1,300,000. Mr. Kapoor, I already mentioned that when we apply these programs to the project, we have about $115,000 over the last 5 years. And we invested nearly $2 billion over the past 5 years. So I would say that we invested nearly 5% of our budget that we already spent over the past 5 years. It's not the exact number, but it's an overall. Do you provide direct subsidies to businesses, or do you only go through other parties? We provide the subsidies to businesses, small and medium businesses directly, and also subsidies to, well, as I mentioned, to the FEDOs in our region, and they are nonprofit organizations. So they use the funding to support other projects that come from OLMCs. So you subsidize directly, and you also subsidize intermediaries. Very well. Mr. Trainer, is it the same thing on your side? do you subsidize directly to businesses, or do you only go through intermediaries? There's a combination of the two. First of all, it's just for the Francophone associations, first of all, but then you also do subsidize businesses directly. Yes. So how do you select businesses in French-speaking communities? Because there may be businesses that are going to apply for funding, but they're not really from the Francophone communities. Is there a criterion? How do you go about checking that?
We normally in Canor have an expression of interest period where everyone applies and we work with them. Prior to that, we have staff economic development officers that work with the Francophone communities, work with the businesses, and we have conversations before that period opens up. During that period, they're in English and in French. And then once everyone applies for the next year, oncoming year, then we look at them, we take into account the nature of the project, the amount sought, the quality of the economic development, and also the value brought to the community or territory. So an aspect of how much does that bring to the Francophone community and how much does it support economic development for them.
Ça peut être une entreprise anglophone.
It could be an English language business, but which provides a service on the French language side, not necessarily businesses from the Francophone community.
Not necessarily, because we usually work very hard on the ground to understand the Francophone community and support the businesses directly. And we work with the Francophone associations to clearly identify who's Francophone. With the communities in the north, they're quite tight and they usually know who's who.
Donc, c'est la même chose de votre côté, M.
So is it the same thing on your side, Mr. Kapoor? Are they criteria to determine where they are businesses from the Francophone community? Or it could be Anglophone businesses that are, as far as the businesses are concerned, businesses present their applications to our department, and we evaluate the applications or the proposals, and we allocate the funding according to criteria. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor. And unfortunately, the time is already exceeded. So we're going to continue now with Nikki Ashton for 6 minutes. Ms. Ashton, thank you very much. And thank you to our witnesses. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the member for Northern Manitoba, Churchill, and I know there are a number of people in my district that are aware of Mr. Trainor's work in his former position. But of course, as a member, as an MP from the West and from the North, and our region is not part of Canor. However, the north of the province here, and as a Francophile, I'm very much interested in hearing about the work that you support out in the field here in our part of Canada. You referred to an investment in a community center, which is something that is very important. And we know that in our communities, the greatest need, there's a glaring need for infrastructure and services connected with education. And I know that your work has an aspect of businesses, but I want to ask you whether Mr. Trainor and Mr. Kapoor, whether or in what way. So in other words, how do your programs assist for educational opportunities for members of Francophone communities in your regions and in our regions?
Mr. Trainor and then Mr. Kapoor, or in any case, it was a question for both of you. Thank you very much.
For the NWT, we provided funding to the Conseil Développement Économique du Territoire, the Francophone community in the NWT, and they provided entrepreneurial capacity building tools and training in order to attract the investments for the various businesses. So we work with the Francophone communities directly to make sure they provide the pertinent training for entrepreneurs who are French in NWT. We do la même chose pour les autres
We
territoires
do
aussi.
the same thing for the other territories as well. Mr. Kapoor, would you like to answer? In our case for investments with EDI, we work with the Economic Council of Manitoba and the Economic Development Council of Alberta and the Economic Council and Cooperative for Saskatchewan. So those organizations use the funds that have been allocated by the EDI in order to support entrepreneurs, Francophone immigrants, and communities to help them build their community's capacity. There's an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and with those projects, they can provide training in the field of funding or how to network or how to present your business to investors. So those are things that are supported in part by our investment. Thank you. We know that there's another need. They need access to early childhood services in French, and we know that there are entrepreneurs who offer in-home services, and I'd like to know if Prairies can or Canor support that type of program for young children.
For Canor, at this point in time, we do not have any programs which support it.
Yeah, Prairies can.
For Prairies Can, our priority is to support entrepreneurs and not to support the early childhood. I think there is support from the social development minister, and they're able to go ahead with projects in that area. Yes, I understand. However, there are some people who are entrepreneurs in that field, and so I wondered whether you provided support to them. I would also like to point out that it's a huge challenge for our communities to have access to that type of service in French. I would like to ask more specifically. There are several of our communities in the north, in the west, that are welcoming a lot of newcomers. Only 15 seconds. So I would like to know what direct specific programs you have to encourage newcomers. Thank you, Ms. Ashton. That's a very good question. However, there is no time left for our guest answers. I would like to mention that if you have anything you would like to send us after, you can send that to our clerk, and she will send us all the information. So for Ms. Ashton's question, perhaps you could answer her in writing. Now, we want to be sure that we abide by our schedule and allow representation for everyone. So we will have the Conservatives for 4 minutes, the Liberals for 4 minutes, and the Bloc Québécois and the NDP this time will not have enough time to speak. So we will begin with Ms. Goodrich, 4 minutes. Thank you, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I am also an MP for the North. I represent Fort McMurray Cold Lake. I have a question for Mr. Kapoor. You can answer it in English if you prefer. Is there a certain percentage of Prairie Hands employees who are francophone or bilingual? I think that almost 15 or 16% of our employees are bilingual. 15. And of that percentage, how many serve the public in French? I think that if we have bilingual employees, so they could serve people in French. But for our department, we have enough people in each province to offer quality services in both official languages.
Okay, so my real piece where I'm trying to figure out is like being in the far north of Fort McMurray, we don't really see Prairie Can on the ground very often, and so this is a question that I have particularly when it comes. My one colleague was kind of asking about the separation between urban and rural. What exactly is your separation for urban versus rural when it comes to the prairies, and how do you guys have the funding broken out for each one of the different provinces? I understand that you give money directly to CDRA and all the different organizations that are provincial, but specific money that comes straight from Prairie Can to different Francophone groups across the provinces, how is that broken out?
First is we invested like about $2.2 million to our FIDOs, and they reach out to the OLMCs in our region and seek projects, and they do a call for proposals, and that's how that money from a project EDI money from a project perspective is distributed across the communities. Secondly, we offer our programs that are open to rural, urban, throughout our region, and anyone can apply to those projects. So our programs are not divided by urban or rural. Our programs are divided by, for Francophone communities, we have allocated specific amount of money every year, and on our regular programs, they're open to whether you are from a rural community or whether you are from an urban community.
Okay, and so then
15 seconds.
15 seconds. So I will not continue then. I would like to invite both of your agencies to give information on the breakdown of employees who can serve the public in French or English. Now, Mr. Yakano. Mr. Yakano, you haven't done the sound test, so we'll hear you speak first to see whether the sound is all right, and then it'll be interpreted.
De couleurs et de sens d'esprit d'équipe. Donc, vraiment...
Monsieur Yakano, je suis très mal à l'aise de recevoir vos bons commentaires.
I'm feeling comfortable hearing all this praise, but yes, you have passed the test, so now you have 4 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, witnesses. Mr. Trainer, first question, Trainer. What are the affirmative initiatives that you implement to ensure you comply with the Official Languages Act?
designated under the Official Languages Act as providing bilingual services. Our website is English and French. We accept applications in English and French, and our interactive applications are also in English and in French.
Merci. Donc,
Thank you.
des initiatives positives.
So you have affirmative initiatives. Now, other questions? What are the main obstacles for the official languages minority communities? The main obstacles.
The main obstacles, as in most situations, is often funding and capacity. I certainly know that we support the Yukon Franconaise to be able to get more French employees. They do a lot of work. They give presentations to CEGEP and other schools in Quebec to encourage Francophone workers. And that is certainly a barrier for them up north. And we're trying to work with them to find the money to be able to encourage those types of activities for them. And they also support all the other two territories as well in the goal of providing more Francophone workers for entrepreneurs and businesses in the north.
You only have finances as an obstacle, or there's other obstacles?
Right now, it's mainly finance. We certainly have lots of conversations with the Francophone community. Certainly, they have challenges themselves with capacity, and we always try and work with them to find the capacity in the best way we can.
Donc, comment est-ce que votre
So,
ministère gère les dépenses?
How does your department manage forecast expenditures that were increased in the action plan? I'm not quite sure I understand.
An increase in the action plan funding for our department. We have remained at $80,000 for a number of years and ongoing.
Donc, les montants n'ont pas été bonifiés.
So there was no increase, as far as you know, in the amounts?
As I know, we have not received any increase.
Okay. Dans la loi, on a
And
parlé du
in the
principe
Act, the principle is mentioned of by, with, and for. How do you implement that principle in your interactions with the official language minority communities?
That's a great question. We work directly with the three associations. In particular, we often have ongoing conversations between our economic development officers in the north with them. And we also participate in official languages discussions in the territories about what is needed, how we can work collaboratively. As well, we work with each entrepreneur in the northern territories. We're very fortunate that we do have people on the ground to be able to have those conversations and to be in constant
15 secondes.
communication.
Bon, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Yakano. So that's it for our first part. Thank you, Mr. Trainer from the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency and Mr. Kapoor from the ParisCan, Ms. Lebel, who I no longer see, but who was also online. So thank you. And I would also like to say, if there is any additional information you'd like to send to the committee to allow us to have a better idea of your organization, please send that to our clerk, and she will forward it to us. Thank you. Now we will have a break for a few seconds
up where we left off now with two new groups. So we have Mr. Fabiano, who was with us from the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario. Welcome, Mr. Fabiano, and Ms. Cousineau of the Development Agency for the South Ontario. Ms. Cousineau is Vice President, Business Innovation and Community Development. Thank you for being here. So we're going to begin with a presentation from you, from both of you, one after the other. We'll start with Mr. Fabiano. You have 5 minutes, and then we will have a series of questions. So the floor is yours, Mr. Fabiano. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nick Fabiano, and I'm Vice President, Policy Communications of the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario, better known as FEDNOR. I am pleased to join you here today and discuss the work of FEDNOR on economic development of official language communities. I would like to mention that we are on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, and I would like to thank the members of the First Nation for welcoming us on their ancestral territories. Before being established as a standalone agency in 2021, FEDNOR operated as a branch within Industry Canada since 1987. Now our mandate was and continues to be the promotion of economic growth, diversification, job creation, and sustainable self-reliant communities in the region. Our region is home to approximately 840,000 residents, including some 6% of Ontario's population, and our region has some 110,000 francophones, which represents about 13% of our region's population, with approximately 20% of the province's francophones. The region is also home to 105 First Nation communities and 150 municipalities, most of which have a population of 2,000 or less. FEDNOR has about 100 employees located. 90% of them are spread out around 6 offices in Northern Ontario. Because of the offices in Sudbury, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins, Kenora, and North Bay, the agency can work directly with businesses and collaborate with partners across the region to grow Northern Ontario's economy. FEDNOR recognizes that these communities are important economic drivers and support it to create the necessary conditions for economic growth and development.
FEDNOR is empowering communities to take advantage of growth opportunities that arise. This is where FEDNOR can support and have a positive impact by helping them create jobs, extend entrepreneurship, attract investment, and develop a skilled and bilingual workforce to foster growth. FEDNOR also works with other government departments as well as national and regional stakeholders to further the business and the economic development that encourages growth in the region's Francophone communities. Recent activities include providing support to local rural and northern immigration pilot communities to build their capacity to facilitate newcomer attraction, integration, and retention, including French-speaking and bilingual newcomers. Through its core programming, such as the Northern Ontario Development Program and the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Fund, FEDNOR makes targeted investments to build stronger communities and help businesses scale up. Support for businesses and entrepreneurs is also available through our Community Futures Development Corporations. The Community Future Program supports 24 CFDCs in Northern Ontario, 12 of which receive incremental funding to ensure they are able to provide services in both official languages as they serve communities that have significant Francophone populations. Finally, FEDNOR provides targeted support to official language minority communities in the region through the Government of Canada's Economic Development Initiative. Since November 2015, FEDNOR contributed approximately $6.4 million, or $800,000 a year, through the EDI program toward 43 projects that assisted businesses and organizations to capitalize on economic opportunities. In addition to the Economic Development Initiative, FedNor's other core program support businesses and communities throughout Northern Ontario, including those that belong to and form part of the official language minority community. The Northern Ontario Development Program and the Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program invested $63 million in 134 official language minority community projects since November 2015, representing 19% of our total funding by these programs. Once
again, I'll be happy to answer your questions and provide additional details as needed. You are very good, Mr. Fabiano. Right on the money at 5 minutes. So a challenge for Ms. Cousineau. So the floor is yours for 5 minutes, Ms. Cousineau. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Linda Cousineau, and I am the Vice President of Business Innovation and Community Development for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. I want to start by recognizing that I'm joining you from Waterloo, the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee people. Je vous remercie de votre invitation à comparaître devant le
Thank you
comité.
for the invitation to appear before the Standing Committee on Official Languages. I am pleased to be here to share the work that FedDev Ontario is doing to support Southern Ontario's official language minority communities. Southern Ontario is home to the largest French-speaking population outside Quebec, and the needs of our OLMCs are diverse. Eastern Ontario is home to well-established communities and ecosystems around Ottawa and Cornwall. To the west, the communities are proportionally smaller and more dispersed. Cities such as Toronto and Hamilton have growing Francophone populations, in part fueled by immigration. FedDev Ontario leverages its regional footprint to connect with these communities, and the knowledge gained informs investments in community capacity building, economic development, entrepreneurship, and business growth. We also engage officials from the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario to address province-wide issues and provide cohesive support for all Ontario's Francophone communities. FedDev Ontario recently relaunched its Economic Development Initiative, which is a component of Canada's Action Plan for Official Languages 2023 through 2028. Over the next 5 years, the agency will deliver $4 million in support. This initiative aims to support OLMCs by strengthening the rich cultural fabric of Francophone communities while accelerating economic growth within these communities. It enables financial support for projects that encourage economic diversification, business development, innovation, and partnerships. It also provides support for small and medium-sized businesses.
Par exemple, Collège La Cité a reçu 1,7
For example, Collège La Cité received $1.79 million over 4 years to support Francophone businesses and entrepreneurship. And La Cité delivered training and workshops as well as collaborated with businesses on applied research to support innovation and product development.
In addition to this dedicated program, FedDev Ontario also helps small and medium-sized businesses owned by Francophones become more productive, innovative, and competitive, and supports entrepreneurship in these communities through its regional and national programs, including the Community Futures Program and the Black Entrepreneurship Program. For example, through the Black Entrepreneurship Program Ecosystem Fund, le Mouvement Ontarien des Femmes Immigrantes Francophones is receiving a non-repayable contribution of up to $1.7 million. With this support, the organization is providing access for Black entrepreneurs and Black-led businesses to advisory services, mentorship, networking events, coaching, an International Black Economic Forum, an entrepreneurial boot camp, as well as introductions to potential partners and investors to help them start and/or grow their business. It is projects like this that are supporting Francophone entrepreneurs, such as Angèle Adoté, founder, owner, and operator of the Dune Donuts in Ottawa, a street food and donut business that is bringing African cultural food to new audiences. FedDev Ontario has also made investments that support and promote Francophone tourism and cultural offerings of our official language minority communities through programs like the Tourism and Relief Fund and the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. FedDev Ontario will continue making investments to support jobs and promote economic growth of Francophone businesses and continue its work to build an economy in Southern Ontario that is inclusive and promotes the vitality of its official language minority communities. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share FedDev Ontario's role in economic and community development for official language minority communities. I'm pleased to answer your questions.
Merci, Madame Cousineau. Alors, nous allons.
Thank you, Ms. Cousineau. So without further ado, you've done better than your colleague. You took much less time, but you were entitled to 30 more seconds. So actually, we're going to go ahead with the round of questions, and we shall begin with Mr. Dalton for 6 minutes. Over to you, Mr. Dalton. Thank you very much, and thank you to the witnesses today. I have a few questions initially that will be directed to Mr. Fabiano. A number of students decide to remain in Northern Ontario for their studies. I'm thinking of Laurentian University, for example. What type of programs are in place in Northern Ontario so that that region can retain those young talents? Thank you, Chair. That is a very good question. As we just indicated, the lack of young people in Northern Ontario and the need to retain young people in our region is really important. With FedNor, we have specific programs with schools for education, but we support the educational institutions in fields of innovation.
Universities and colleges to create an opportunity for new entrepreneurs to work with those individuals to keep them there. Mais aussi, FedNor fait beaucoup de travail.
FedNor works a great deal with the 5 communities that are part of the Project Pilot Rural Northern Immigration in order to bring new immigrants and to Northern Ontario. And what is the percentage of bilingual positions within your organization? Thank you. As I just said, we have 100 positions in FedNor, and at least 55 of them are designated as bilingual. So all the people in those positions have to be bilingual as well. Since we have a number of employees in the north or in Sudbury, we have more than that who are bilingual and who are able to speak both languages. And so of the 55 employees, how many of them offer direct services to the public? For those who deal directly with the public, we are a small organization. We don't have many executives or managers, and so the 55 positions that are bilingual, for the most part, they are people who work with the public. I like to hear that, to know that there aren't too many administrators. So what is the process for an entrepreneur to receive funding from the federal government? Well, quite simply, we have an application process, and the businesses or entrepreneurs can apply for support. As I just said, we have 2 programs, the Northern Ontario Development Program and the Regional Innovation Program. So they have to apply, and the process is always open. It's not something with that's only for 3 months a year. We have an open application process year-round, and each application, we look at it to see whether the program's demands have been met. They have to be in Northern Ontario, They have to have an impact on economic development. And with that, we decide on the amount. Also, for the most part, our support is for communities, for organizations that help entrepreneurs, because the support that we give to entrepreneurs is money that they have to repay after years. And how long does it take to apply and then to receive the funds? Well, once the application is in our system, there are two stages. First is to decide whether or not it's a valid application. And after that, we ask for financial documents, and then our service standard is 80 days. And then we'll give an answer, either affirmative or negative. You've already responded in part to this question. What are the criteria that an entrepreneur has to comply with? Well, only a few seconds left. You can continue. There are only 30 seconds left. The application is for each program. If it's an innovation program, well, then they have to show that their project will have an innovative impact or an impact on innovation, show that it's something new that will grow, that will increase the business's production. So it depends on the program in question. Okay. Is that it? It's over. Thank you, Mr. Fabiano. And now, Mr. Say, 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Fabiano and Ms. Cousineau, for what you do on economic development in Ontario. My question is going to be for Mr. Fabiano. For the Economic Development Agency, I think it's the agency that has the most francophones, the most bilingual employees that offer services. I think that the other agencies should adopt your model more closely. We'll look at statistics later. I would also like it to look at the women immigration money, but I would like to see in 2021, FedNor became an independent agency. The government Liberal decided that it's the first time in 36 years. And also, since 2015, the government offered more money to the agencies because it had been cut back under the Harper government. So they had suffered from severe cutbacks, and so the new government offered more money. So now with these additional funds, there is an organization, PARO, the women's organization. What did you do to support Francophone women in the North? Thank you. The organization works with women entrepreneurs, and there are companies that offer mentorship, help, and they help with business plans, so they support women entrepreneurs. And according to us, organizations like that are very important in Northern Ontario, because often the businesses don't necessarily mean the money, but they need especially a mentor to have access to people who have experience and expertise and can help them with their businesses. And so it isn't always just money, and that's why we invest a great deal in innovation centers as well. And also the government has a pilot project for immigration, rural immigration, Northern Ontario. You perhaps saw it in this committee. We talked about Francophone immigration a lot and about its importance. So what role does FedNor play to help municipalities and organizations to see more Francophone immigration in Northern Ontario? Mr. Chair, the issue of immigration is very important for Northern Ontario, and we face the same obstacles as the rest of the country, but I think that it's even tougher in Northern Ontario because there aren't always communities for the new immigrants. So for FedNor, there are 5 communities, as was pointed out earlier, that are part of the project. Timmins, Thunder Bay, Sault Marie, etc. And so we provided money over 3 years to each of the communities to help them to work with new immigrants and to create a situation where they can work with entrepreneurs who bring the immigrants in, and also when they arrive, their support provided. Because it's true that when immigrants arrive in Toronto, there's more support in Toronto, but if a new immigrant comes to Timmins, well, the community isn't there. And so it's very important to offer support. So we don't offer the support, however, we give support to the organizations who do. So the support that you give to organizations is that you have Francophone or bilingual employees that helps you. I have the same question for you, Ms. Cousineau. What is the role that your organization plays in supporting Francophone immigration in the Southeast? And also what you do to support Francophone entrepreneurs in Southeastern Ontario? Thank you for your question. We have a role to play. We support these organizations for women and for newcomers. We also support a project with PAHO with $1.5 million, and these are centers to develop for skill development. We work with Renfrew, Russell, Glengarry, and others. And so women in those areas have access to information to find jobs. And only 30 seconds left. Also for women, there is the Francophone Immigrant Women's Organization, and so there are women in different businesses, so we provide support with our regional program. We have a possibility to work in those areas. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cousineau. Now, Mr. Beaulieu, 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I've understood correctly, you said about 50% of your employees are bilingual or in bilingual positions. Yes. And do employees end up in a bilingual position without knowing French? No. No, because with the government regulations, if you are in a bilingual position, you have to be bilingual. And every 5 years, you have to pass a new test. Now, in the federal government, there are positions that are bilingual, but often there are people there who don't speak French, but they have to go for training. That's not your case. Well, in that situation, if someone is taking language training, while the person who replaces them could have an exemption for a short period of time. But since we are a very small organization, we try to hire bilingual employees. And for those who aren't bilingual, we provide French training within our organization, even for positions that aren't necessarily bilingual. Especially for positions that aren't bilingual, we also try to offer French language training. Ms. Cousineau, is it the same thing for you? In our organization, we encourage people to take training in French language
If the position is designated bilingual, it is staffed in a bilingual position by a bilingual individual. I would note that 100% of our executive committee is bilingual, and this supports the tone at the top.
Merci. Puis je me demandais aussi,
Thank
est-ce
you.
que vous
I would also like to know, do you provide direct grants to some businesses, or do you always have middlemen? Mostly directly. We also support, as I said, some organizations. It's not that we give the money to an organization so they can give it to a business. We, especially with the minority language community, we try to work with an organization. We give them, they might give a bit of money to the business, but it's for support to provide expertise. So it's not like giving money to another person. So mainly you subsidize organizations that are there to support businesses. And in direct grants that you give to organizations, how do you ensure that we've talked about what it can be for schools, but how can you be sure that these are businesses that come from the Francophone community? Well, on the application, they have to say whether or not they are a Francophone business, and the definition is at least 50% of the ownership has to be Francophone. But also, as I just explained, our officers know their communities well, so they know whether or not a business is truly Francophone and really works with Francophones. Has it ever happened that a company asked for subsidies and then you decided that it wasn't a Francophone company? Not since I've been with the agency, no, but I don't know before. Do you have a team or a department that looks after services for Francophone economic development? We do have a small team. We have a few people who are specialists in that field, and they do a lot of the work with the businesses, with the associations. So 1 or 2 employees who are more involved with them.
Cousineau, dans votre cas, est-ce que c'est un peu la même chose?
Cousineau, in your case, is it similar? Do you subsidize businesses directly, or do you also subsidize organizations that support businesses? Precisely. We do both. We support businesses directly through our programs, but we also provide support through organizations that deliver services on entrepreneurship or to other businesses to assist them in growth. So both apply. We do both of these approaches. So could you say whether the most part of your budget for Francophone communities goes through organizations or directly to businesses? I can verify that we support Francophone businesses through all our programs, as part of all our programs. As regards the EDI program that you're talking about, 15 seconds, Mr. Beaulieu, we use nonprofit organizations and Francophone organizations that manage projects in the regions for certain purposes with results that involve Ontario Francophone communities. Thank you, Mr. Beaulieu and Ms. Cousineau. We will now move to Ms. Ashton for 6 minutes. Ms. Ashton, over to you. Thank you very much. Both are witnesses. You spoke about work you do with new arrivals, immigrants arriving in Canada, for whom I would say our communities are putting a lot of pressure and expecting that everything that they bring with them to support, it has to do with educating children, supporting our communities, and providing a more rosy future for the French community outside of Quebec. I know that the lives of new arrivals, particularly in minority language communities, are very difficult. Can you share with us on the challenges that they've shared with you that inform the work you do in order to be able to better support them? And we may begin with the gentleman from FedNor. Thank you for the question. As you just stated, the challenges for new immigrants are difficult, particularly in rural regions. As you just explained, when it's a question of a minority language, it's a bit more difficult. Except that the obstacles that you already indicated for the services for which we have tried to provide support for those organizations financially in the cities that I mentioned, but also with immigrants. There might be an employee or a family. There might be a family that needs support also from the community. And perhaps it's more difficult because the immigrant or worker was in an organization or a business and has a lot of support from the company, but it's also a matter of the family. But I see that in small communities, such as in Northern Ontario, the community gets together to assist not only the working immigrant, but also his or her family, because that's really a benefit to be able to retain the new family or the new immigrant within the community. So I find that a lot of good work is being done in small communities in Northern Ontario. Thank you. Ms. Cousineau, could you please share, and once again, if there are any challenges that you are aware of as an organization faced by new arrivals that you try to respond to in the best possible way? Thank you for the question. And in fact, in Ontario, we have investments with organizations that work with new arrivals, and we have an investment with the Toronto Business Development Center of $3.3 million. And as my colleague explained, it's an organization that assists businesses that are starting out in Canada, and when they arrive with their families and they receive assistance, and they create an environment in which they can adapt and be successful. So there is a lot of pressure, we understand, but with the contribution, the services that that organization provides, it aims to improve the situation of those businesses so that they may succeed. Okay, thank you for having shared on the investments that you make while recognizing that we have much more ambitious people in immigration that want to succeed. And do you think that the purpose of this study is to make recommendations, and do you think that more resources for FedNor or for your investments in Southern Ontario and other development networks on economic development would be necessary in order to provide better support to new French-speaking arrivals? Thank you for that viewpoint. I leave it to you to make the recommendations. Thank you. Ms. Ashton, you still have a minute 10. Fine. So I'll ask the question, a question that has to do with FedNor, who spoke about investment, the work you do in your region with a number of Indigenous communities. Could you say whether the work you do with Indigenous communities in Northern Ontario, for example, well, is there more for French-speaking communities too, or as neighbors, or as within the region or whatever. Thank you for the question. Yes. The answer, quite simply, is yes, because we find that with the work we do, 15 seconds, the First Nations communities, their businesses are good businesses for the entire region. So there's synergy with the businesses and of the minority language. So for the region, it's necessary to have a lot of collaboration between all the businesses. Thank you, Mr. Fabiano and Ms. Ashton. We will now go to the second round of questions. For the second round, this is an official language committee, so I'll try to use the right term. So, Mr. Bernard Généreux of the Conservative Party of Canada, Mr. Généreux, over to you for 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, witnesses, Mr. Fabiano and Ms. Cousineau. In the framework of the EDI, what type of support is provided? Is it only subsidies, or is it contributions or loans or other things? In both cases. Well, for the most part, in the EDI field, they're not really loans, because with the organizations that we work with, they're more grants and contributions. And if it were an investment with a company, and the purpose of that investment is to increase their profits, then yes, it's a loan that has to be reimbursed. So when it comes to the OLMCs, do you see the fact that these contributions are, whether they're reimbursable or not, do you feel that they are beneficial? In other words, do they really generate spin-offs, positive spin-offs anyway, so to speak? Are you in a position to measure that? Yes. One of the measurements is the increased jobs in the region. We see that. And also, if I may, with the funding that we have on EDI, we have increased
CAT Sunset, Vêtements,
407 training sessions, consultations with the community, and 100 development plans for financing were created, in addition to the business and the jobs, the increase in the jobs. These are other things which assist with the ecosystem for business people in the minority language. Ms. Cousineau, do you also contribute, I imagine, to the EDI? Yes, of course. We have a contribution to the EDI program.
Initiative, and we have an allocation of a contribution value of 4 million over 5 years, and that's 800,000 annually. I can speak to the results of the last 5 years in the program and its delivery. And through our investment of $4 million, that resulted in assistance to 1,000 businesses and 78 organizations. This leveraged an additional 6.3 million, and over 270 jobs were created and maintained.
Okay, so that means that over the past 5 years, because earlier, Mr. Serre, I believe, criticized us for cutting back some 8 years ago, since the government has been there, that money was reinvested since then. Did that money really make a difference, according to you? Could I receive more clarification of that question? My question is that the federal government over the past 8 years, including the past 5 years that you spoke about, has added funding for development, economic development, pretty well everywhere. Do you see that that really made a difference in the field? Or was there not that much difference? And the same thing for Mr. Fabiano. Thank you for the question, the clarification. The Fed Ontario budget for 23-24 is a total of the main estimates of
that includes $390.9 $9 million in grants and contribution funding. The economic.
Madame Cousineau, avant que j'aie plus de temps.
Ms. Cousineau, before I run out of time, what portion of those amounts is reserved strictly for OLMCs or the portion for minority communities? All our programs can serve Francophone businesses and Francophone communities. The EDI is only one initiative that provides support for Francophone communities. Mr. Fabiano, my initial question, $800,000 a year was for EDI for Francophone communities, and about 40,000 one the part of it in the 40,000, a portion of that amount is used to assist Francophone businesses too. Thank you, Mr. Généreux and Mr. Fabiano. And now we are going to move ahead to the Liberal Party of Canada representative, Mr. Francis Drouin. Over to you. Thank you very much, Chair. And I wish to acknowledge the work by FedDev. I'm quite familiar with the organization. And Ms. Cousineau, I would like to focus a bit more on the relationship between your department and the SRDCs in the field that are a little bit everywhere, or the Community Futures organizations, that is, Community Futures programs, to determine what role they play in minority language communities. I heard the name Prescott Russell. I'm familiar with it because I enjoy representing that district, but there are other regions in Southern Ontario which also provide services in French, and I would like to hear you on that topic.
Mr. Chair, FedDev Ontario provides operating funding to Community Futures Development Corps so that these organizations across Southern Ontario are able to have access to business supports and entrepreneurship training, business counseling, and loans to support the growth of the business. But they also contribute to supporting community economic development in rural communities. We support 36 Community Futures Development Corps in Southern Ontario. We have 6 of them that receive incremental funding to ensure that they're able to provide supports in both official languages as they serve their communities that have significant Francophone populations. Those CFDCs that serve Francophone populations include Prescott Russell, as you noted, Renfrew, Venture Niagara, North Simcoe, Essex, Cornwall, and counties. In terms of the CFDCs, they are really instrumental. About 60% of our rural population are being served by CFDCs, but that is also augmented by the programs that FedDev is able to deliver directly.
Merci beaucoup, Mme Cousineau. Est-ce que je trouve
Thank you very much. What I like about the CFDCs is that they help businesses that would like to have access to more money, and if they have a good relationship with your department, they can connect businesses or even NGOs who are looking for more money in order to offer more programs, or if they're looking just for more funding. I have another question. You mentioned it when speaking to Mr. Serre. So I'd like to talk about promoting female entrepreneurship. I'd like to know what programs are offered, what type of programs are offered by FedDev that support women's entrepreneurship programs. I know that I have a business, L'Oreal backing in my writing, and the director, the owner, is Ms. Bonneau, who inherited from her husband, from her father. She had access to $100,000 because of our program that was to help women entrepreneurs. So that program, what is the role of that program in the communities? I'd like to thank you for your question.
Non-repayable contributions to women-owned and women-led businesses. And so that helped to promote companies like L'Oreal Packaging to grow. I would draw your attention to a recent announcement and investment by FedDev Ontario for a company located in Vars, Ontario, through our regional programming. This business is women-led, and it's called Borak, and they do dump truck mechanisms. And that company's expanding to be able to reach in global markets. And we're helping this company with a $6.1 million contribution, repayable contribution, so that they can grow and access new markets and create jobs in OLMC community. And that is an example of a company that's grown over the years with various supports through the ecosystem.
30 secondes.
Merci beaucoup. Et je
30
connais
seconds. Thank you very much. I know Borak very well. Thank you very much for your work. And I would like to point out the important role that you play for the economy and for the rural economy. In minority situations, I think that your department is a key player in economic development. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Drouin. Now, our second round will end with Mr. Beaulieu. So 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Yes. According to you, what would be the most important improvement? What could help you the most in your work? I think that what's most important is that we, as an economic development agency, our goal is to continue to work. We have a national program. We want to continue with that principle, and it's been established.
Filling the gap of national programs and continuing to be able to work with the community is probably the most important thing. Funding is always a question that I leave for others, but I think for us to continue to be able to, work in these communities directly is the most important thing, I think, for us.
Legault, pour vous, quel aspect de
l'écosystème? What is the aspect of the economic ecosystem where we need to reinforce the Francophone element? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What is the aspect of the economic development ecosystem for Francophone communities that needs to be reinforced? And what is the one as a priority? Thank you.
What we're hearing from our businesses across the region and from an entrepreneurship is the pressures created by our current economic conditions, the impacts of the supply chain, and the current inflationary times. That said, we have had an opportunity most recently to support l'Assemblée, I can't get the name, l'Assemblée francophone de l'Ontario, with a project because they identified a need that official language minority communities really need to come together and be able to create regional plans that can strengthen their communities and the needs, including around things like entrepreneurship. So our current investment that was announced most recently of just about $330,000 to l'Assemblée francophone de l'Ontario really serves to help the community to meet their needs.
Cousineau.
Thank you, Ms. Cousineau. Thank you. If there's anything else you would like us to know, please just send that to our clerk. Now we're going to finish the second round with Ms. Ashton and her assistant. So 2 minutes. Yes, he asked me when we adjourn. Well, I would like to thank our witnesses, and I would also like to ask what can we do to help your teams, and I would like to ask FedNor what can we do to support you, and especially how can we help support newcomers trying to have access to your services. Thank you for your offer of support. I think this is something, one of the benefits of becoming independent as an agency is that we have more access to Ottawa ministers. And as I just said, it isn't just a question of money, but we want to be able to talk about obstacles, talk about views of our citizens. And so we want to be sure that Ottawa understands the obstacles and difficulties in various regions. So that's the support that we try to continue to see in our region. Another question, Ms. Ashton? Or would Ms. Cousineau like to add anything? I agree with my colleague just said, with what my colleague just said. So, Ms. Ashton, did you want to adjourn? No, it's not. No, it's not just me. I would like to thank our witnesses for their testimony and for all the work you do on the ground. So you only had 20 seconds left, so no time was wasted. So as Ms. Ashton said, thank you to our witnesses. And once again, if there is anything else you would like to bring to our attention, please send it in, because we want to come up with an efficient and rigorous report. So in conclusion, I would like to tell you that the Minister of Public Safety is not available to testify on the study on bilingualism in the RCMP. Also, for our next meeting, we'll continue to look at the draft report on increasing Francophone immigration to Canada, and it will be chaired by your chair, Mr. Arsenault, I hope next Monday. So I would like to wish you all a good day, and would the committee like to adjourn now? And so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.